First is from Proverbs 8:13. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride and arrogance, the path of evil and corrupt speech. And from 1 John chapter 2, verses 9 and 11. The one who claims to be in the light while hating a brother or sister is in the darkness even now. The person loving a brother and sister stays in the light, and there's nothing in the light that causes a person to stumble. But the person who hates a brother or sister is in the darkness and lives in the darkness and doesn't know where to go because the darkness blinds the eyes. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
There actually, in 1 John, is another passage in chapter 4. And it says, if anyone says, I love God and hates their brother or sister, they are a liar. A little more harsh. Because a person who doesn't love a brother or sister who they can see, can't love God who they can't see. So today we're preaching hate. I was going to put something on Facebook, but I figured that might get misinterpreted. So if you ever want to research hate, I'll tell you the internet is the place to do it. There's a lot of it out there. And the anonymity, the fact that people can hide behind these online profiles makes it so much easier. And unfortunately, makes it easier for them to not hear people's stories. So I got on the one source. There's only one page on the entire internet that's a source of light, and that's my Facebook page. I asked my friends what they hated, and several put stuff on the actual post, but I got a lot more private messages, and I even got a couple of texts, which was kind of odd. And it seems that people hate child molesters, littering, hipsters, hypocrisy, Oklahoma Road, suffering, snakes, sports, prejudice, politics, racism, classism, xenophobia, fear-mongering, and injustice, and many even said they hate hate, especially when it's done in the name of God. Now, I didn't get any crazy responses. I halfway expected to get one or two, and I'm glad I didn't, because that shows that my friends are really cool. But there are other people out there. I mean, if you look at any article online and then go scroll straight down to the bottom, and you read those comments, I mean, that's like scraping the sides of the barrel. There's so much vision that some people, that's all they have. A teenager went to their youth director one time, and they were really upset and mad at one of their relatives. And the youth leader said that she needed to forgive her relative, and the teenager said, "I will never forgive that person as long as they live." The youth director said, "I'm so sorry to hear that." And the teenager looked at her and said, "Why?" "Because in 20 years, you're going to be just like that relative." That cut so deeply that she went home that day and worked to forgive him. Hate's like an acid. It doesn't just damage what it's poured on, it damages the vessel that it's in. It can be like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And according to medical studies, verbal expressions of animosity towards others call forth hormones from the pituitary, adrenal, thyroid, and other glands, an excess of which can cause disease in any part of the body. And of all the evil, destructive things that can happen to us or that we do to ourselves, hate is so damaging. And whether that means hating a person, a thing, a place, or a group of people, as I was writing this, I really had to work on Texas, because I hate Texas. It's kind of like a deadly germ, not Texas hate. And it works constantly to gain power over us, to destroy us. No right-thinking person would harbor and nourish a deadly germ in their body knowing that this would eventually kill them. Yet many of us, including me, hold on to some of those things way too long. And seeing it's so destructive, we might ask, well, why do we hold on to it? Well, maybe we feel justified. Maybe we think that, after all, we were wrong first. Maybe it helps us to feel superior, maybe even righteous, to think, well, I would never do what they did. Maybe we like to keep score. After all, we like to win. Maybe we actually like to nurse our wounds and nourish those hurts so that they can grow. There was a pastor that was called to the bedside of a dying man, and he was a man that no one liked. He was a hard man, he was bitter, he was sullen. He lived in a shack on the outskirts of town, and anytime he came into town, people avoided him. Kids ran from him. The people in the town gossiped a lot, trying to figure out what made him this way. Some people said that he had a guilty secret. Others said he was a fugitive from justice. But they were all wrong. The fact was, when he was a young man, his best friend wronged him. He was so angry that he said, "I will remember this until my dying day." And he did. As the pastor sat next to his deathbed, he tells him, "I've gone over it every morning. I've thought about it every night. I have cursed that man 100 times a day at least." As he struggled to breathe, he said, "I see now that my bitterness has hurt no one but myself. It has eaten my soul entirely. And God knows it has turned my life into hell." See, the moment you start to hate someone or something, you become its slave. They control your dreams, absorb your digestion. They rob you of your peace of mind and goodwill. It takes away the pleasure in your work. It ruins your religion and nullifies your prayers. You can't take a vacation without it going along. It destroys your freedom of mind and hounds you wherever you go. And there's no way to escape the thing or person you hate. They're with you when you're awake. They invade your privacy when you sleep. They're close beside you when you drive your car and when you're on the job. You can never have efficiency or happiness. They influence even the tone of your voice. They require you to take medicine for indigestion, headaches, and loss of energy. Even steals the last bit of consciousness each night before you sleep. So if you want to be a slave to hate, go ahead. But when you hate someone, it's a compound problem. I would even say it's a sin. Yes, sin. Y'all might want to write that down. Jake said sin at church. Have you ever hated someone? It's not just a hate. Did you gossip about them? Tell lies about them? Pray that God or maybe somebody else punishes them? Let's be honest. We do that. We're human. And those are sins too. This is how most of the world operates towards their enemies. We call them names, we diminish their humanity, we go to war with them, we plan and plot their demise. We rejoice in their failures and mourn when they succeed. We write letters, we make phone calls, we send emails, we muster up support among our friends. We try to get people to side with us and join in our hate. We try to convince people to hate just like us. And if they don't, we just hate them too. Hate is bad enough when you look at the metaphor of the germ inside the body, but hate can spread faster than any flu outbreak and have much more damaging consequences. Now that's the way the world treats their enemies. But sadly, sometimes even Christians, even the church, can act in a similar fashion. And there's this one song, and when I was in the seminary band, we used to play it all the time. I loved it. They'll know we are Christians by our love. But if you look on the internet, if you hear what's on the news, you don't even have to look closely. They'll know we are Christians by our hate. And that's really sad, because those people are representing us too. I did a few searches. I found out that there are groups mad about movies, media, equality, mad about immigration, mad about people getting treated fairly, or at least treated like they are, mad about the ACLU, mad about the government, mad about sex ed in school, crime on the streets, and drugs in our neighborhood. There are groups that are mad about education or the lack of education. There are groups that are mad about our impact on society, or the impact of society on our children. And we spend so much time and energy on hate that we don't have the energy or capacity to love. And we spend so much time and energy being against something or someone that we have either forgotten or we just plain don't want to be for anything. And sadly, that makes all of us as Christians look more like an angry political movement than a spiritual organization that is devoted to handing out hope and healing a hurting world. Too often, when people hurt, when the world is hurting, when broken people become more broken, our response is to say, well, we told them so. Now I get that the Bible says not loving the world or things of the world, but we are not called to hate. Jesus did not call us to hate. We are called to be set apart, not called to be apart. We are not called to be separated. We are not called to be in isolation. We are called to be the people that show unity. We are called to be the people who show the world how to love. We're called to be God's example of love to this world. We're called to be salt and light in a sinful world, and we're called to be a lighthouse, and we're called to be a beacon of hope. We are called to speak out boldly with prophetic voices, calling people to Jesus, being the hands and feet of Christ, reflecting the image of God. We are called to meet people where they're at and love them just as they are, helping them, healing their hearts. We are called to be a people of grace. The Bible, both the Hebrew Scriptures and the New Testament, it's a book of grace. The stories are stories of grace. The people are people of grace. You might say, well, what about an eye for an eye? Aside from it making the whole world blind, when it was put forth, that was radical grace. Back in the ancient Middle East, if you mistakenly grabbed one of your neighbor's goats and killed it and ate it, he could take 10 of yours, or 15, or 10 now and 15 later, until he felt satisfied that you had paid the price. Moses said 1 for 1, and that was a huge difference. And there are several times in the New Testament Jesus says, the law says this, and then Jesus takes it further. Jesus has higher standards for us. In Luke chapter 6, it talks about behaving as God's children. It says, but I say to you who are willing to hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on the cheek, offer the other one as well. If someone takes your coat, don't withhold your shirt either. Give to everyone who asks, and don't demand your things back from those who take them. Treat people in the way that you want to be treated. Turn the other cheek. I've heard people say, well, it's not like I killed somebody. If you don't murder someone, but you hate them in your heart, you might as well have murder. It's about the attitude and condition of our hearts. Sin isn't just the thing we do. That's the fruit of the condition of our heart. But the question we need to address is why. Why does Jesus want us to do good to those people that would want us harmed? Well, maybe because people see our example and be moved, or maybe because we are created in the image of God, and Jesus expects more out of us. Some people do good to their enemies out of some weird sense of retaliation. They think if they do good for their enemy, it brings some special judgment. Well, isn't that nice? This is completely contrary to what Christ is teaching here. How could Jesus possibly teach us to love our enemies by doing good to them so that eventually something bad happens to them? just bad theology aside, what sort of person only serves others so that the other person will suffer later? That's a sick way of thinking. It's like saying, I hate you, but I'm going to love you so the worst things happen to you. I actually saw somebody use this verse to back it up. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. And in doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head. And the Lord will reward you. That's in Proverbs. Now you might think this has something to do with make our enemies angrier and somehow our kind deeds toward them will make things worse. But really, if you look at that scripture, it is the exact same thing Jesus is talking about. It is turning the other cheek. See, in the ancient Middle East, before you went to bed at night, you would make sure that your fire was built up. It's called banking your fire. So it would still be hot coals in the morning and you could keep going. Sometimes it would go out in the middle of the night. You would have to go to your neighbor and ask for a hot coal or two. Do you think you're going to carry those in your hand? No. So you would carry this pot with you. And you would go over there, and usually they would give one or two. And if you carried it like a bucket, it would burn your hand because heat rises. So they would carry it home on their head. And what they're talking about in this is not giving one or two coals to somebody whose fire went out. They're talking about filling up the pot full of hot coals so that their family can be warm. It's a neighborly act. It makes friends, not enemies. President Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, was at this reception and made a passing reference to Southerners as erring human beings. Now this was a lot softer than what the crowd wanted, and this lady called him out on it. She just jumped all over it. In her mind, they were enemies and they needed to be destroyed and quick. Lincoln's response stopped her in her tracks. He says, "Why, ma'am, do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" In World War II, Christmas Day came, and the men on the American side and the German side heard each other singing carols, and they sang them back and forth. And eventually, some got up the courage to walk out on that bloody battlefield where they had been fighting for weeks. They brought gifts, the only gifts they had. Cigarettes, rations, and small candies. There was even a few soccer games that popped up. By the end of the night, the men were friends. The next morning, the fighting was to resume, and it did in places. But in other places, the men refused to fight. Because those men on the other side were their brothers too. And in fact, fighting didn't resume on some fronts until entire regiments were replaced. Life's too short to live in hate. We're called to be a people of love. As you go out from here this week, pray. Pray for those who would do you harm. Pray for those who you might have a hard time forgiving. Open your heart. Jesus expects more.